Yo, what's up? What's up? What's up? It's your boy, the clinician, and I'm back for your weekly episode on comics and coffee, where we just talk comics. We be chilling, and just kind of shooting the breeze with it, yo. Man, it's been a great year, you know what I'm saying, to be like a comic book fan. The way, like, I feel like this is the year of obtaining that grail. If there was ever a time, like within the past, I'd say since 2019, there was ever a time to, like purchase something or find something that you really wanted. I think now is like more than ever the perfect time if you can afford it. Like I'm not, I know everybody can't, I know the economy is kind of, what it is right now, but if you can afford, to buy your grills and you're patient enough, you can find some really awesome deals. I mean, I've been definitely building up my comic book collection. You guys know I'm a huge Thor fan, so I'm on my quest to basically, collect all the Journey into Mystery comic books and also that Silver Age Thor run post Journey into Mystery with him and Kirby. So with that being said, guys, today what I want to do is I want to do an unboxing for you guys, and no surprise, this is a Journey into Mystery comic book, but this is a comic book that I've actually been kind of sitting on for a while because I've been wanting to get it in a certain grade because I'm like, I kind of want this in a high. You ever just look at a comic book and you're like, okay, some comic books you can like, you're cool at whatever grade you get. You're cool at maybe like a lower grade, like a very good or good plus. You can live with like a 3.0 or a 3.5. But in certain books, you just want at like a higher grade if you can afford it. Because something about that cover, whether it's the significance of the cover, maybe the colors pop more at a higher grade or what have you. And for me, it was just merely the fact of I just love the cover. I just feel like the cover is a dope cover. It's got like characters I really enjoy. Aside from Thor, of course, Thor's on the cover, but you have other additional characters on there that I'm just like, man, this make it pop. So with that being said, I saw this particular comic book and on shout out to Shortbox. I've been really pursuing, books on there. And what makes this comic book unique is this is really the first comic I've gotten, or one of the earlier comics I've gotten that's actually been funded by the hobby. And what I mean by that, guys, is as a collector, we can easily, you know, tap into them reserves quick. Collecting can get really expensive. I mean, you start, buying books here and there, and then, it just adds up. So, my goal is to allow the hobby to fund itself. And what I mean by that is sometimes you got to give a little to get a little. And, for me, I decided that I have a pretty decent enough collection where I have a couple of books in the tuck that I'm not necessarily as attached to, and I'm okay with just parting ways with to get something better. So for me, I actually sold a copy of Amazing Spider-Man. I believe it was 569, 568. First appearance of Anti-Venom, and I made my first sale on Shortbox actually. And I was so proud of it because, I made sure it was packaged perfectly, wrapped it up all nice and, tight, and, sent it off, priority mail, and it got there safe. And I'm hoping, if, the buyer is seeing this, I hope you like the purchase. It was 9.6, and it was a variant Venom cover. I'm hoping you enjoy it, man. I hope it has a great home and you're really loving it. So use that money to basically put back into the hobby and get something I really want. So as you guys know, I'm really a big Thor guy, and I've really been looking to collect and build up my Journey into Mystery collection. Right now, I'm counting this book, this one I'm about to open. I am 28 deep. I'm 28 issues in on Journey into Mystery. So I have about, let's see, 16 issues left. 16 issues left before I've got the entire run. I've already got the annual, so I'm not counting the annual because that's not. It is part of Journey Mystery, but it's not. It's just the annual. But I do have that too. So this particular book will make this 28, and I will have 16 issues left to go. Now, will I complete that this year? Wait and find out. Only time will tell. But for right now, I feel like I'm off to a pretty strong start. I've got some pretty key grails early on this year. And, I'm just really excited to continue this collection. So without further ado, we're going to open this bad boy up, as I just got this from Short Box a little over a week ago. And we're going to see what's up in here. All right. Got it taped good in here, so that's what I like. You always want to make sure that your boxes are secure and taped in properly and are not gonna fall out, because you never know what you're gonna get when you're dealing with that postal service. I've heard some really bad horror stories about how the postal service does handles packages and what they do. So, it's just one of those things that you want to be mindful of when you're packing your books. You want to make sure you do the best you can do, because you can't really control what the Postal Service is going to do. And because you can't control what they're going to do, you want to make sure that you secure the book as best as possible, so you can account for those, what I call extraneous variables that you can't control for. Things that are out of your control. So you focus on what you can control. And what you can control is the packaging. And this particular individual did a great job of packaging. As you can see, they had it in 2 boxes. Have it in 2 boxes, which is, I'm not complaining. Hey, as long as it gets to be safe, I am cool. And I'm appreciative of that, of the person taking time to do that. So if you guys, for those of you guys who don't know, Short Box is a kind of like the middleman for comic book collectors and purchasers. So, like for me, for example, dealing with Short Box, not everything comes directly from Short Box. They're based out of California, I believe. So you have different purchasers, that, work within that scope that, can sell independently. So whoever the seller was, I don't know who they were. I don't think their name was listed. They did a great job, doing it and, wrapping up this book nice and secure. So I'm very, very happy with how they wrapped this book up and how they packaged it. And I love it, man. I love when people take pride in their packaging and making sure that it is properly secured. This is A1. Love it, love it, love it, love it. So guys, what book do I have for you guys today? So today, on today's episode of Comics and Coffee, we are looking at Journey into Mystery, issue 109. Oh, yes, at a 6.5. And this comic is gorgeous. Oh, I'm loving it, loving it, loving it, loving it. Like Madonna said, ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it. Oh, yeah. I'm loving this, loving this, loving this issue. So what is the significance of this issue, guys? This is the first time the God of Thunder himself, Thor, has a crossover with an X-Men character, Magneto. And also we have cameo appearances by the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, who are also a part of Magneto's team, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So this is like back in the early days, the Silver Age of Marvel, where everything was still a lot more grounded. And, you have Stan and Jack Kirby building this, they're basically world building. They're creating all these new characters, and, they're creating this whole Marvel universe of superheroes. And, with that, of course, you have to have villains in order to have heroes, and these villains are growing. So sometimes these supervillains will cross over with other heroes, and there will be tie-ins from other issues that coincide with the story. Well, in this particular instance, basically after a battle with the X-Men, Magneto basically went into hiding. And I don't know what the issue was that all this kind of ties in with. So, guys, if you do know, like on the X-Men side, what issues tie in with this particular issue of Thor? Because I felt like I know Magneto was coming off of a battle. If we're looking at like a timeline, I know Magneto was coming off of a battle with the X-Men. And he went into hiding and he wanted to draw the X-Men out. And then, of course, the way it ends, I know there's like a segue into another issue of X-Men. So if you guys can leave in the comment section in terms of the timeline, what was going on, prior to Thor issue or Journey into Mystery issue 109, and what was going on with X-Men during that timeline, I would greatly appreciate it. Because I never really got into like the earlier X-Men stuff. I'm more of a Claremont fan. I think I told you guys this before. I appreciate the groundwork Stan laid down for it, but I always felt like the 60s X-Men was kind of like, the covers were dope, the artwork was amazing, in terms of how they drew the comic book covers, but the storyline just didn't really hit me like that. I really got more into it during the Claremont era. But say all that to say, Magneto is definitely one of my favorite characters when we're talking about X-Men. Gambit is my number one. Magneto is a close second or third, depending on what day of the week you're asking me. But Magneto, to me, what makes him so cool is I don't even really consider him, I think I told you guys this plenty of times, never really considered him to be a villain per se. I always felt like, what his cause was just. He was just really trying to better his people and really like empower mutants to know their worth and their value. He just had more of a radical and a more intensive approach. Now one could argue that he definitely had villainous qualities, and I think in his earlier issues back in the 60s, which is I may need to go back and just read some older X-Men. He had more of that typical villainous type of persona. I mean, he was still for mutants, but it was more of like he had a superior. Well, he also had a superiority complex, but he had more. It was a more maniacal. It was more like a more of a selfish intent when it came to, or more evilness, some more evilness there, like some deviltry there, and how he approached it. And it almost led you to, and from what I remember, it almost seemed like was it really for the cause, or were you just really trying to embellish in your own personal self like fulfillment on things? So I don't know. But anyway, getting back to this issue, Journey into Mystery 109, we're looking at basically Thor, who, at this time is still, going back and forth between Thor the superhero and him being Donald Blake. So for you guys who don't know, back in this time, Thor had an alter ego. He was known as Don Blake. Odin basically reincarnated, Thor into this body of a lame doctor, had a lame leg, had to use a cane to walk. And when he tapped the cane, he returned into Thor, and this was and according to Odin, this was to teach Thor humility. And I have my own take on that because Odin was something else, man. Odin is something else. Like I'm gonna tell you, I have like a love-hate relationship with Odin when it comes to Thor, because I think he be doing my man's dirty, man. I mean, for him to be your son and he's supposedly your favorite son, he be really doing my man's dirty, like on a lot of stuff, man. He be doing Thor so bad a lot of times, man. I swear. But with this particular issue, Thor basically is doing his thug thizzle. He's patrolling New York, making sure everybody's safe. They even built like at this point, we've established, a lot of the root characters in the Marvel universe. So you got Thor, Captain America's is in the Silver Age by this time. You have the Hulk, you have Iron Man, the Fantastic Four. All of these heroes are starting to emerge. So to acknowledge, that the universe, the Marvel universe is connected, Thor basically, starts off visiting like a museum, and it's in commemoration of all the heroes that are a part of Marvel. And you see like statues of the Fantastic Four, Iron Man, and all that. And there's of course a statue of my man Thor. Because come on, he's that dude. He just is. I'm sorry, Thor is just that dude, man. Like I think like he's so. He just you just can't mess with him. So Thor's getting his love from the community and everything. So he goes back to. If he feels like everything is cool and on the up and up, he goes back to the doctor's office, transforms back into Donald Blake because he is a doctor. He has a private practice with his love interest, Jane Foster. And by this point, him and Jane are starting to, develop a stronger connection. I believe at this point, they were actually becoming an item, right? For the longest time, there was like a whole will they won't they type of thing going on between him and Jane Foster, where it was always like, man, I should shoot my shot, but she might not like me. Does she really like me, or is she more into Thor because Thor has saved her plenty of times and she seems to go googly-eyed every time she sees Thor and yada yada yada. And then on her end, she's like, I don't think he's feeling me like that. He always pushing me off, very standoffish, not really making time for me, blah, blah, blah. And of course, she didn't know his secret identity because at this time, Donald Blake was not allowed to tell, or Thor wasn't allowed to reveal his secret identity per Odin's request. If he did that, he would be in violation, and that's a no-no when you're talking about dealing with the King of Asgard, because Odin don't play that. Odin do not play that, and Odin has done some shicey things to Thor, man, like some petty things. Like there was one point Odin just straight up took half of Thor's power because he thought about, settling down with Jane Foster. He was like, no, you not getting with no mortals. We ain't doing that. Even though last I checked, Odin won't messing with Odin was kind of doing his stuff too. Now he wasn't messing with no mortals, but he was messing with Gaia, who is of Earth. So I don't know. Like Odin was a big hypocrite. I don't know. But anyway, he wasn't rocking with Thor and Jane Foster's relationship. So of course he could do, but as Donald Blake, he could maybe shoot a shot and have a better opportunity because he's a human and he can develop something with her. So basically he's kicking it with Jane Foster. Everything's going cool, and then all of a sudden, he notices something odd. Like all these objects are starting to like float around in New York. He's like, yo, what is going on? Like, why are all these objects like floating in New York? Like where are they going? It's like they're all going in like the same direction. He's like, this is weird. Like, what is up with that? So what was going on was Magneto had basically, after battling the X-Men, like I said, I don't know what the issue is or what happened. Something happened where he was in hiding from the X-Men. And he basically had this submarine that he was using to hide under the sea. And what he did was he wanted to he was actually looking for the X-Men. He wanted to draw the X-Men out so he could basically take them out. And he had his Brotherhood. He had Toad with him. He had Scarlet Witch, and he had Quicksilver. So basically what he did was he hooked himself up to this big old magnet. And the magnet combined with because he is the master of magnetism, combined with his power, he used to magnetize like various objects, to him in order to lure the X-Men out so he could set his trap. Now, what his trap is, we'll find out a little bit later. But instead of getting the X-Men, he actually ends up kind of doing something unexpected. He actually lures out my man Thor. So, of course, Thor makes up an excuse to get away from Jane Foster. He hits his cane, turns into the God of Thunder, and then uses his hammer Mjolnir to follow the objects and also to track down Magneto because Mjolnir does have magical properties. And he goes down to Magneto's underwater base, gets into the submarine, and confronts Magneto. Now, Magneto's like really shocked, like, whoa, for you to have found me, either you must be definitely somebody special, man. So it kind of caught him off guard, but Magneto like straight up respected that. He was like, yo, like you have to have some pretty, interesting talents to really like rock, really find your boy, like, because nobody just finding me underwater like that. And yeah, I had stuff magnetized to me, but it was to a certain extent because he had to stop at a certain point. So Thor was like, okay, but why are you magnetizing stuff? Whatever, man. I clearly you up to something, that some type of like villainry or deviltry or whatever. Well, let's go ahead and get into it, because Thor don't really be sometimes asking too many questions, especially if you feel like you have evil intent. He ain't really trying to hear nothing, so he's ready to scrap. Magneto's like, whoa, man, I ain't even trying to fight you right now. Let's rewind. Let me click the reset button. Let me talk to you. And that's what I do like. I like the fact that we have this first interaction, because keep in mind, during this point, Thor has not met the X-Men. Their first interaction, I believe, was X-Men #9. And it was basically the original Avengers versus the X-Men, but it was on an X-Men issue. And that was the first time they actually met. So Thor has not met the X-Men. He doesn't know anything about mutants. And Magneto doesn't really know anything about gods. So from Magneto's perspective, he's really just assuming that this guy's probably like some type of mutant. And let me see if I can try to get him or sway him to my side. Not realizing that Thor is a whole god, man. He's not a mutant. He's like, I'm not human. There's nothing human about me. I'm not a mutant. I'm beyond that. But nonetheless, Magneto tries to, persuade Thor to join his side. So he promises Thor, all these riches and, wealth, and hey, I can give you this, I can give you that. And Thor's like, man, I ain't interested in none of that. Do you know who I am? I'm the guy he's from Asgard. They got plenty of gold and trees. Matter of fact, he's the heir to the throne of Asgard. What do he need with all that? You don't need all that. You don't need none of that mess. All you want to do is protect Earth, save people, and help. He's not really into all that extra stuff. So, Magneto was like, trying to, smooth talking his way out of it, but Thor won't hearing it. And he ends up knocking, Magneto's wine, because, he was going to tote. They were going to do a little tote. Hey, man, drink with your boy. And man, Thor's like, man, get that mess out of here. Get that mess out of here. I ain't trying to do that. Magneto was like, man, I gave you an opportunity for greatness, but you chose despair. Now you got to die. You got to go. I tried to be civil. Try to talk to you. You know what I'm saying? Even offered you some of my wealth, my riches. But you don't want none of that. All right, cool. Let's go then. So they get to fighting. And this is an interesting fight, because even though Thor is a god, Magneto is still an Omega level mutant. And for those of you guys who don't know, mutants are ranked in different tiers. So you have the lower tier, which is beta. Really, who I consider to be a beta. Beta level would be somebody like Toad. Not really somebody who's a big threat. Significant limitations to their powers. But they're still a mutant at the end of the day. And Toad, I think, fits that category pretty well. I mean, he has decent powers, but he's not world or earth shattering. He's not gonna blow up. He's not like a high level threat. Then you have Alpha, which is a little bit higher. So that's more of like your Cyclopses, your Gambits. Well, Cyclops could be questionable, but more or less, I'd say, I'll put him in Alpha. Your Cyclopses, your Gambits, that are, they have limitations to their abilities, but they're still pretty darn strong. Like they're definitely a problem, and they can do a lot of damage, but they're not going to blow up the planet with their powers. Then you have Omega level, which is, they're really like, those are like your Storms, your Magnetos, your Quentin Quires, your Jean Greys. These people are basically, mutants that have, there's really no known limitations to their abilities. Like they can go they haven't reached that limit. They have like world shattering ability. Like Magneto, if you saw X-Men 97, you know what I'm talking about, what he did to Earth. Like Magneto can magnetize the world. Like he has the ability to amplify his powers to that range. And like he really doesn't have any no limit into what he can magnetize. I mean, the dude literally can magnetize iron from somebody's blood. Like, so you can do it at a macro level, or he can do it, or a micro, excuse me, he can do it at a micro level, or he can do it at a macro level in terms of how he can manipulate magnetism. Like, he's just really that dude. He really has no limitations to his ability. Then you got Comics Explain. He always talks about beyond a mega level, and that's like your reality warpers and all that. Although that's not an actual category, but shout out to Comics Explain though. I've been following him for years, for over a decade actually, and I love his takes on the different tiers of mutant ability. But get back to Magneto. So he's an Omega level mutant, so he's still a threat, and he can hold his own, against anybody for the most part. So Thor and him are going at it. And here's the question that I really wanted to know how they were going to do this. Because Thor's hammer is made of probably, arguably, the most powerful metal in Marvel. Now, I know you guys say, well, what about adamantium? What about... He bit, like, Wolverine's claws dang near bent with him trying to slice, or he couldn't slice Thor's hammer with adamantium. He just couldn't. But Thor, can definitely, put some chinks in other metals. Like, he doesn't really have any... Uru metal, as far as I know, doesn't really have too many limitations outside of reality warping when it comes to like just another solid object breaking it. Like, I've never seen just something like straight up breaking it outside of reality warping or like God tier ability. Like, but metal to metal for metal, Uru metal is like probably the strongest metal in Marvel. So, and on top of that, you have a magical enchantment that gives it extra abilities. So my question was, okay, it's still technically metal. So anything metal can't, Magneto should be able to use his power to magnetize it regardless of what metal it is. Don't matter what it is. I mean, he can magnetize anything. But my question became, because of Thor's specialty with the hammer, or like the special features of the hammer with it being magic and having certain enchantments, would that maybe like dilute Magneto's power for him to be able to magnetize it? And the answer is not really, because when Thor and Magneto were going at it, Thor went to go throw his hammer, and Magneto manipulated that hammer. Now, he couldn't wield the hammer. He couldn't hold it, but he could definitely manipulate the hammer to do his bidding. And boy, oh boy, did he. Because what ended up happening was he ended up pushing the hammer out the way with his magnetism, which during this time, Thor had one of the wackest weaknesses, man. Like, oh God. So anytime Thor was separate, so, okay, in addition to being Donald Blake, whenever Thor transformed into his God self, he could not be separated from his hammer. If he was separated from his hammer more than 1 minute, then he would transform back to his mortal form of Donald Blake. It was the wackest weakness. I don't know why. What made Stan and Jack Kirby decide to do that? Maybe it was to try to balance out Thor's power, because he is pretty OP. So maybe they felt like they didn't want him to become like a Superman type, where there was really nothing that could harm him. And, they had to give him some type of weakness maybe to try to, balance him out. But I felt that weakness was really a really bad weakness. Like, it really just, I didn't like it. Because I felt like he was always getting put in unnecessary situations. And I don't know. I didn't really like that weakness. But Anyway, he got separated from the hammer, and then on top of that, Magneto like tried to use metal to like bound Thor. Thor broke out of it, but it gave Magneto enough time to separate him, put separation between him and Thor, and trap him in like the room that they were fighting in. So during this time, Thor's like, okay, I'm about to punch out of here, which would be no problem for Thor to punch through metal, right? But he couldn't get his hammer back because Magneto had magnetized it, and he was in a whole other room at this point. So what happens? Thor transforms back to Donald Blake. So with him being back to Donald Blake, Magneto doesn't notice because he can't see through the room, but he knows that he's in there. So Magneto's like basically using nails from the metal doors to try to attack Thor just randomly because he can't see, but he can still manipulate the metal on the other side of the room. And Donald Blake, he's trying to like run for cover and duck and dodge. And Magneto's just like, okay, well, let me confirm the kill. He goes into the room, and Donald Blake is basically hiding from him. So, and hiding from him, Donald Blake was able to maneuver and get around Magneto to find his cane. Which once he's separated from his hammer, the hammer turns back into a cane, and then he taps the cane, and boom, God Thunder comes back. So when the God Thunder comes back, he like it's like, okay, now I'm ready for round 2. I'm ready for you now. So like, I've seen your power. I know what you can do. Like, I got it. So, Magneto's like, oh, snap. They call him off guard. And he snuck up on Magneto, started hitting him. And Magneto's still a strong dude because he basically put up a magnetic force field to kind of like brace like some of Thor's hits. Which is actually, I gotta respect that because I'm like, yo, he's taking straight blows from Thor's hammer with his magnetic force field. So it shows you how strong Magneto really is. And even during this time, so Magneto was even like, okay, I'm not gonna be able to hold out too much longer like this. So let me get up out of here. So Magneto basically forces Thor back and uses it as an escape pod that he goes down. But when he goes down, he was like, okay, I'm gonna bait Thor in with this trap. So he had set a trap to basically it was like a nuke, basically like a nuke. He had a nuke bomb at the bottom of the ship, and that was really his trump card that he was going to use on the X-Men. So remember what I said before? He wanted to lure the X-Men out for something. That was his trap. He wanted to set them up for them to come, and he blow the whole spot up. With he nuke them. But what he found was when he went down to his escape pod, the bomb was already frozen, indicating that one of the X-Men, Iceman, had frozen the bomb. So the X-Men at this point had already arrived on the scene, but we don't see them in the actual comic book. We just are left with that indication because if you know X-Men, you know the different powers that they have. And during that time, the only person who could freeze things was Iceman. So when he saw that the bomb had gotten froze, then he was like, oh, snap, well, let me get up out of here. So Magneto just said he just aborted the mission altogether and just like peaced out. So when Thor got there, he saw that the bomb had gotten frozen and he throws it away and destroys it to make sure it doesn't harm anybody. And then he looks out, as he's like getting out of the submarine, he sees that Magneto escaping, but there's also like an X-Men or another submarine with the X-Men logo going right behind it. So it indicates that the X-Men are on the scene. They found out that they found Magneto's hideout or his whereabouts, and they're taking care of it at this point. And Thor at this point is like, all right, well, I don't know who these people are, but my main objective was to defuse the bomb. The bomb is gone now. It was already taken. That part was already taken care of. There's no more magnetizing going on. The threat is going, and whoever's chasing them, I'll let them have that. So Thor just kind of, pieced out at that point. So still hasn't made the X-Men yet. They don't show the X-Men. And I am curious, again, guys, if you do know the issues that tie in with this particular one, let me know. Because I am curious to know, like, what were the X-Men doing during this time? Like, how did they know where... Did they see the floating cars and all the magnetism as well? Because, you couldn't miss it, clearly. How they track Magneto down? Was it the same? Was it through that method? What was going on? Why did what led to Magneto doing this plan? Like, what was the tie-in? I would love to know because I am kind of curious now. Like, what was going on during that time? But nonetheless, Thor ends up flying back. He turns back to Donald Blake. He gets with Jane Foster. He's hugging her and all that cool stuff. And, getting his Mac on. Thor doing his stud thizzle. So that wraps up, Journey into Mystery 109. There is a Tales of Asgard event right after this. But I'm going to save Tales of Asgard for another time because I really want to go do a deep dive into Tales of Asgard. And Tales of Asgard, for those of you guys who don't know, is basically like the telling of how Thor grew up and just Asgard in general, just different stories and different things that were going on prior to that led to Thor becoming who he is today. But you also get some background on other characters like Balder, Sif, Hela, Odin, Surtur, Loki. Loki has some really cool stories during the Tales of Asgard. And you find out all this stuff about the lure of Asgard and what makes it what it is. So I really love that stuff. And this is right after, issue 109, or one of the Tales of Asgard is after issue 109. So with that being said, I really love this issue. I really like the cover. I mean, you can see him magnetizing the hammer on the cover. I love the artwork by Jack Kirby. He was just a phenomenal artist, man. Really ahead of his time. I mean, you don't really see art like this these days, man. I know there's a lot of up-to-date stuff and art has grown, but I love this Kirby goodness right here. I mean, this Kirby artwork, and this is just, I'm so appreciative to have this in the collection and just really at awe that I was able to get this. So how much did I pay for this? So the fair market value for this, according to cover price, you're looking at probably $225 as of back in March. Okay, so at that point, I was like, I'm not paying $225 for a 6.5 copy of this. There's no way. So what I ended up doing was, again, I told you I sold my Amazing Spider-Man 569, and I was able to get this book for $170 on Shortbox. And I had a coupon for Shortbox that gave me free shipping. Because you got to factor in that shipping too. That shipping is not cheap. And at that time, Shortbox, they normally charge $15 for shipping because it's going through priority mail. So I actually had a coupon that I had from them. I got it from them. Shout out to Shortbox for giving me that coupon. And I used it for the shipping to not have to pay. I actually talked the guy down. He or she was initially charging, I think, about $200. And I talked them down to $170. And they agreed to the deal. Bet. I'm on it. So this right here I got for $170. It's a beautiful copy, a 6.5. Just look at that. Just beautiful copy. You can see the magnetism of the hammer. You see Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in the background. They were with the Brotherhood at the time, of course. Both of them will later become Avengers themselves and turn against Magneto. And we got some off-white to cream pages. So, beautiful copy. I'm really happy with this, guys. So, again, Journey into Mystery 109. The Journey into Mystery collecting continues. I'm so excited for you guys rocking with me today. Leave some comments under the set. I am curious, though, because the one question I do have for you guys before we wrap up for today, Thor versus Magneto. So, at the end of the day, it was really kind of a undecided. I mean, even though it would lead you to believe that possibly, Thor was getting the upper hand, that battle really wasn't decided. And Magneto, I don't think was really looking to fight for the long haul anyway. After he realized that this was not a fight that he really that he saw that was really going to go the distance, he wasn't necessarily scared. I think he was more strategic into saying, okay, I know eventually X-Men could be coming. Let me get up out of here. So I don't think Magneto was scared of Thor at all. And I don't think that Thor felt like initially took Magneto seriously, but once he realized how strong Magneto was and how raw he came with that metal and that magnetism and how he could manipulate Thor's hammer, I think he took that battle a lot more seriously. But we never got to finish that battle because Magneto did escape. So technically, it was an undecided victory. Even though maybe you could kind of argue, you can kind of give the edge to Thor a little bit because Magneto did retreat. I can't really call that a victory. So I would like for you guys to put in the comment section, who do y'all think will really win in a knockdown, drag-out brawl between a base Thor versus a base Magneto? What I mean by base Thor is like regular Thor without any amp-ups or any power-ups, just your typical oldest son. You not Rune King Thor, not, the Hero of Galactus Thor, like not Thor, Odin, like Thor with the Odin Force or the Thor Force or whatever. Just a baseline Thor, like he is in this comic, versus a baseline Magneto. Who do y'all think gets it? So I'm gonna put that in the comments. Who y'all think get it between Thor versus Magneto? And let's talk about it. All right. With that being said, though, guys, it's been fun rocking with y'all. It's always love, kicking it with you guys and talking comics. Thank you guys for following on my journey. If you like the video, subscribe, send a like, and I'll talk to y'all later. But until then, peace.